Welcome to the YouTube. Today I have for you a Sivir Akshan Darius deck created by the one and only rickorex. I had some good success with on ladder, so I figured I'd share some games with y'all and show you how powerful it is, maybe give you some tips on how to play it so you can just follow along these games, and then the deck code will be in the description so you can try it out yourself. So here we have game 1 against a Timelines Jax deck. We start with the Forsaken Bakai. Try to search for the equipment, didn't get one, so I'm like, cool, no big deal. It's just a 2-1 and we get to pick our next draw. Pretty strong card regardless. I find that most times I don't hit the equipment because we don't play too many, and it's still a very worthwhile one drop. I think rickorex is pretty smart for the inclusion of that card. I'm trying to decide what I do want, if anything, but I just skip it here because nothing in that pool seemed too appealing. I was considering the Shapestone more than anything, but I decided I didn't want it, and we just go for a bigger unit or something that'd be more useful. Later on in the game, we take that trade there, just give them extra mana, no big deal. Turn 2, let's see what happens. I believe we're just going to try to get our Akshan down. The main strategy of this deck is that you just want to create a really big overwhelm turn, and Akshan just kind of helps you get there. Setting up that temple just helps you, get the pieces you need, because it's not always the most consistent strategy to try to win with a big overwhelm unit. And then here we see the Buried in Armor, which is the main reason I wanted to try this deck, because this card seems absolutely busted. For one drop, you get a 3/3 weapon that is only 3 mana. So that's like the value from that card that you get over and over and over again by reusing that weapon is so busted. Here we see Gummy with a catch, which is something I certainly did not expect, because PNZ usually doesn't have those combat tricks, but we're still getting used to the new expansion, so I might have misplayed by throwing my Akshan there a little bit. Drop down our landmark to get it leveled, so I'm feeling pretty fine about this game. Jax is still a bit of a threat here, but I'm not feeling too pressed about that. I don't believe they had their timelines, which obviously decreases the power level of this deck by a very large amount. There we see them discard a parts, and I'm like, cool, they just have a Urchin and a Jax, no big deal. I think I might slam Sivir, but I don't want to get whatever the Fisherman card is that gives the units with an equipped weapon challenger. I don't want to give them the Sivir kill by opening myself up to be vulnerable for that. And I figured this deck wants to be relatively aggressive anyway, so I think I just passed on this play. Yeah, pass it off because I don't want to give them all that value. Like I said, they just attack, which is really good for me. I'm down to take the trade on the Urchin because that gets rid of a blocker and opens up the Sivir for me. The spell shield should be really busted in this matchup is what I'm theorizing, and I always have the bloody business to take care of that Jax later, so I'm feeling pretty good. Here we see they have a second parts made hole, so I'm like, cool, they're just kind of bricked up. Slap down the Ionian Hookmaster, no big deal. See what weapon they get here. It is the Rake, so they're gonna have Scout on one of their units later on in this game. I'm like, dang, that's kind of scary, but not a big deal. We get our 3/3 weapon treasure. Decide a Merciless Hunter Jax and try to farm Sivir's quick attack value, and that also opens up a fearsome swing for the gifts from Renekton Merciless Hunter. Slap the Treasure of the Sands on it because that'll make it an 8/6, which kind of forces their hand into playing something that has to answer that, which I'm really happy to do. And that's also a good way to farm the value from the equipment as well, because it makes sure like that's something that's going to die eventually. A fearsome unit, it'll get blocked by a big blocker, but if I just keep chilling with it, like it will die, so that way I'll get to re-equip the weapon somewhere else. Whereas if I put it on an overwhelm unit, it's probably just gonna like end the game, or like by the time I try to put it on the fearsome blocker afterwards, it's not even useful at that point because they will have fearsome blockers, if that makes sense. So here they use the new 1-drop spell, get themselves a little mage. I'm like, cool, no big deal. Pass that off. We're pretty close to leveling Sivir at this point, so I'm really happy with how game is going. We have our landmark down. We get another Bakai Reaper, which will help predict our next draw, I believe. And let's see what Gummy does here. They slap down a Vi, that's right. So this is a super good bloody business target for me, so I'm like, cool, feel good about that. Drop the Forsaken Bakai. Get the Akshan because I'd like to get Akshan's second landmark, and I'm probably just going to develop the Rune Runner next turn, get my camel, and go crazy. They slap Scout on Vi, and I decided to just kill that. There's no 2-drop spell that could deal 3 damage onto my Rune Runner, I don't believe, so I feel pretty comfortable. I mean, not Rune Runner, Gifts from Renekton, whatever that card is called. And the opponent promptly surrenders as their Vi dies. They really don't have anything else to do. So really good game there. Gave me a lot of confidence in piloting this deck since it was like one of the first couple games I played with it. On to game 2, we've got a Jax Ornn deck we're playing against. Pretty weird strategy, but you know, I'm still in like plat 4, so people are trying a lot of random decks against me. I see the Buried in Armory. I'm pretty happy to keep that, and then I can just do the Hookmaster on 2, so I'm like, that's a pretty good curve. You know, one thing playing a pretty aggressive deck like this is that we're going to want to curve out pretty aggressively, so it's important that we make sure we have a good, you know, aggressive mulligan. I forget to play the Buried Armory on 1, and that's definitely going to get to be very annoying for me because I obviously want to play a 2-drop here. I think the upcycled Rake is like far and away the strongest weapon we can get here, so I slap it on the Hookmaster even though it's not going to be very good on turn 1, and then I attack with the Hookmaster as well, I believe, after they drop their blocker. And the reason I attack with the Hookmaster is because A, I don't want that unit to get value, the Forge one, and then B, I just want to get the equipment back in my hand. I never really care about getting the Hookmaster to do anything significant. So you see I have the Bakai and the landmark, so I'm like, cool, I'll just drop the Bakai. They do a Jax here, I slam this down, cool, try to get a weapon, no big deal. I skipped that. I probably should have gone for Akshan there, but I was just kind of tilted that I kept missing the weapons, I think. And then you see I'm tilted, so I continue to forget to play the Buried Armory, which is sad because that has a pretty hefty countdown. And then I realize, and I slowly play my Sivir, I'm like, I am such an idiot, I forgot to play that. But you know, it's not gonna end up being a big deal. I slapped the Scout on Sivir to try to level her sooner rather than later and continue to push for a very huge amount of damage. So got the 6/3 Scout Spell Shield unit, quick attack on turn 4. I'm feeling very good about that. They're just sitting there with a Jax, no big deal. I'm pretty sure they just slapped down one of the improvised units at this point, if I remember correctly. But yeah, against Jax Ornn, the big threat is that they're going to create a huge Ornn that we can't overwhelm through, or that they will somehow kill this Sivir with a combination of spells. But Freljord's removal has been pretty clunky historically. Like, even if they get a freeze later on down the line, we should be able to protect her with the Draven spell that will swing in with other units, so I'm not too pressed about that threat. We just see them attack with Jax, and I'm probably considering doing the Draven spell as well if they do want to go down that route, because you know, getting Sivir leveled is a big priority here. So I believe I finally remember to play my Buried Armory. Nice, get a Treasure of the Sands in hand in 2 turns, and that would be really good to slap on my Rune Runner. It almost isn't even a bad thing that I forgot to play it though, because them not knowing that I don't have it is great, and I was playing most of my cards out those last 2 turns anyways. It was just that one turn that I didn't play it kind of set me back. So here we see the Whirling Death, that's what it's called. They do the 3 sisters. I'm like, sure, make a big Jax. That is, again, definitely not what I was expecting, but thankfully I do have the Shape Stone to play around that, and I pretty much just hit him with the GG emote, because at this point I'm fairly confident that this game is over. Sorry to Sling V for the BM, but you know, I was feeling a little spicy and tilted after my misplays. You know, sometimes the BM gets the best of us. There I draw the Akshan. I'm like, I'll just slam the Rune Runner, or no, I'll just start with the Scout attack, so that way they don't know what I'm doing with this turn. Since I'm going to use the Scout attack regardless of how this turn goes, I decided to slam the Overwhelm on Sivir as well, because I realized that's a super silly attack, and that's going to be a common trend as we move to the next game. We just see them surrendering as I'm pushing like 18 damage this turn for no reason. So yeah, again, pretty silly. Getting the equipment on Sivir there is obviously super strong. And on to the final game we've got against Leovold. It's Kayn Zoe, very historically, everybody's trying new decks, like I said, so we played against 3 new decks as we're in low plat. So we mulligan the Bloody business because I'm like, I'm not even sure if that's gonna be useful. And then I remember they play Sparklefly, and Leovold does a emote to greet me because I believe we know each other. So I decided not to keep her for the Sparkleflies. We have a pretty good curve attacking on 2. We have the Hookmaster and the Sivir to develop, along with our Reckless Trifarian, and we draw a Buried Armory. This time I don't waste any time slamming it down on turn 1. I'm really happy about that top deck. Drop the Hookmaster on 2. I'm like, cool, swing in with that. Again, I get the upcycled rake, so I'm like, I'm super down to just try to go for that Sivir might play again because that seemed really broken. And they put down a Keeper of the Box. So here they're either taking 4 damage or blocking, so they decide to do the block. So I'm like, cool, get the rake into my hand. I believe I dropped the Trifarian the next turn. Just continue to put on that pressure. I'm really happy. They drop a Shadowblade Fanatic. So at this point, I'm like, they don't have Zoe, and I don't feel like Kayn is a huge threat. So I'm feeling very, very good about this game. They do 3 damage to me. I'm like, cool, no big deal. We're gonna go over the top way faster than they're gonna be able to kill us with Kayn. So I'm not too threatened by this. Drop the Sivir into the play and decide that I will just swing with both of these because, you know, why not? Start trying to level those. They drop a Darken equipment on that. I'm like, cool, just push my 10 damage or lose your Bloodletter, whatever that card is called. I believe they end up blocking the Trifarian. That's nice. Pretty good value trade for them, but you know, it was just a 3 mana for me, so I'm chilling. Get a lot of level on my Sivir. They drop another Fanatic. Oh, that's what it's called. I misspoke. I don't know why it targets my deck. That was kind of weird, but you know, whatever. Top deck a Ruin Runner. Decide I'll probably Treasure the Sand Sivir. Just kind of nullifies their attack. But instead I'm like, wait, I have the upcycled Rake play again. Why don't I just do that? Especially since I have the Shapestone in my hand. And I don't believe they have enough spells to pop the Spell Shield and actually deal with it. So I'm kind of going all in on this play at this point. They do drop the Sparklefly, which could be mildly annoying, but I'm not too pressed about it. Heal their Nexus up a little bit. I'm like, cool, we obviously can't block that. Go down to 11, which I guess is scary considering they play so many elusives, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to end the game this turn with my double Shapestone Scout Might play. So we go in with everything, just kind of whip our, you know, out and try to win the game. We're pushing 26 this turn, and they currently have like 5-8 worth of blocks, so they need a good amount more. And also, even if this doesn't work, we'll have effectively cleared their Sparklefly and another big unit. So I'm feeling pretty good. They look at the math, and I'm pretty sure, you know, this is all but over, especially since we can use the Merciless Hunter to drag around the Sparklefly and make sure it doesn't actually get any value. So they drop a Kayn, gets the Darkened Scythe. We decide we're going to give Vulnerable to the Sparklefly. And I believe, or I mean the Kayn, it doesn't actually matter what we give Vulnerable to. But yeah, this is going to be all she wrote as we push the remaining 7, and it's GG's. So yeah, all credit goes to rickorex for building this deck. Go check him out on Twitter. His link will be below. If you want to watch live gameplay like this, I'm live every day on twitch.tv/maxgotthetracks. Yeah, let me know what you think about this deck. Share it if you have any people you think might enjoy the Overwhelm gaming experience. And until I see you again, thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.